Everybody around the world learns maths for years of their life. And I'm going to explain to you as a mathematician and somebody who's led a company that believes in the future of mathematics, has been pushing the computational age for 35 years this year, that math education is pretty much the wrong subject for the upcoming AI age. So I'm a proponent for mathematics, but I am not a proponent for maths education as it is around the world. And I want to explain that to you during this talk. Okay. So we have a crisis right now. Every day in the world, many lifetimes are spent learning mathematics. And yet everybody seems to be pretty unhappy. So employers say they can't hire people who have the right skills. We have governments panicked, wanting more mathematics. In the UK on Monday, Rishi Sunak announced that he wanted more maths to 18 years old. We have teachers saying it's difficult and boring to teach, hard to motivate. And we have students who despise it in many cases, think it's irrelevant, don't know why they're learning it. And yet, in the real world out there, maths is more important than ever. So what's gone wrong here? Something's wrong. And I'm going to tell you why. It's because the subject in education, particularly at secondary level, in my view is about 80% wrong. The content is the wrong content. It's not how it's taught, it's not how it's delivered, it's the wrong content. Let me explain that. And I'll explain very simply why this is. No computers for calculating. It's as simple as that. We forgot about computers. And the way to summarize this is to say the following. In the real world, computers do almost all the calculating. The reason mathematics is so predominant in the world today is because we have mechanized computing. That's why it's so much more predominant than it was decades ago. In educational maths, people do almost all the calculating. It's a different subject. And it's the wrong subject for most people to be doing. Not for a few people who are interested in that, but for most people. For grinding our whole populations through for 10 years of their life. Now, is there any reason to learn mainstream math? Or should we just forget about it as a subject and do something else? Well, I'm going to argue the right math, there are three very good reasons. Technical jobs that most of our economies depend upon. Everyday living. By which I mean understanding the world and decisions made in the world right now. So take the pandemic. Should you get a vaccine? Should you wear a mask? All the decisions pushed at us through data, through modeling. Most of the population have no idea how to interpret those at the moment. They don't have the right education for that. That's one example. But there are many others. Every day our lives are controlled by modern computational decisions. And yet there's virtually nothing in education to help us with that. So the point of mathematics in the real world is better decisions. That's the point of it. It's a system of problem solving developed over hundreds, even thousands of years that is one of the most productive in humankind's history. Better decisions for life, for work, for society. But you need the decisions on the things you're actually going to do with the tool set that you actually use. I mean, ask these questions. Is education currently delivering data literacy or data science? Is it promoting logical thought? Is it optimizing economic results? I don't think so. Is it developing what I would call computational thinking and computational literacy? And I think it isn't effectively. It's doing bits of that, but very inefficiently. So let me explain this a bit more. This is the math process. This is the hundreds of years, thousands of years process that allows us to use mathematics to work out results. We start by defining questions and we then abstract them to a form that's computable. We then calculate them. We take them from the abstract form, it might be an equation, to the result in an abstract form, x equals 3. And then we interpret the result and we say, does that represent the answer to the question we asked? So a question you might ask, in this room, if I talk for too long and we seal all the air, how long will you survive? Right? This is a question we might ask. So that might be the defining question. The abstraction might be to run the model we think is appropriate. Well, it might depend, you know. Most people it might be air, some people if they're diabetic it might be food, you know, etc. So it may be different things, but we could come up with something. And then we calculate the result, then we ask the question, you know, x equals 3 hours. Is that realistic? If it's -2, it's probably wrong. The problem that I show in this, in educational maths, we spend almost all our time on step 3 by hand. Yet that's the one step that computers do fantastically better than us in essentially every case. What we should be doing is spending much more time on steps 1, 2, and 4, building experience, understanding of what goes wrong for those steps, for much more complex problems, real-life problems that people actually encounter. You see, what we need is first-rate human problem solvers, not third-rate human computers. Right? There's no point in competing with the computer. It's going to win on things that it does well. Don't compete on the computer with the computer. Go a level up to the next level. And this is what's happened in previous industrial revolutions. If you think about it, humans went to the next level. And we'll talk in a moment about literacy in the 19th century. Learn to read and write because you're not just doing manual labor for everyone. Here's a question I love asking government ministers around the world. When was the last time you solved a quadratic equation? Okay? Everybody here will have learned quadratic equations in school, perhaps. I imagine it is most people learn how to solve. This is an equation with x squared in it. When did you use it? You know, I'm a mathematician. I run a company that's the predominant world company in delivering computation to everyone. I never solve a quadratic equation by hand. Right? It doesn't happen because I might set up an equation, but I probably set up a different equation. It might be a fifth-order equation, a differential equation, a difference equation. But in the end, the computer does the solution, not me by hand. So let's get our students doing a much higher level, knowing what the tool sets are. When do you use machine learning? When do you use equations? And get the computer to solve them. That's the name. The hint is in the name, computer. It computes things. And it does it incredibly well. So here's an example you might enjoy. This is, Wolfram was one of the 10 partners with ChatGPT as the first plugins that were announced a few weeks ago. I think they only have access right now in the US, but we took a British maths A-level paper. This is the exam you take, like the back here, just before you go to college. And the question was, if we just feed it the paper, don't do anything, don't take out the questions and work out mathematics. If you just feed it the paper, what happens? What result do we get? Well, it's a bit of a shock. So ChatGPT by itself got 43%. Not bad. We got 96% with Wolfram and ChatGPT together. So here it is actually doing the example. You can see it literally producing the answer right back out here. That's the question. And here it is, the Wolfram Alpha aspect of that generated this answer. Now, this is shocking. The very subject that we claim is driving us for the AI age, the central subject, mathematics, is the subject everybody needs so that they're prepared for the AI age. That very subject, modern AI and Wolfram Alpha, ChatGPT and Wolfram Alpha together can score better than almost any student. So we got the wrong subject and the wrong assessment. This is not the right thing that our students should be doing. We can do better than this. Oh, by the way, there's a thing called Further Maths in Britain, which is taken by top students going to do technical courses. We got 94% on that. Problems that people can solve. So some of the problems we have in our problem sets for different age groups. You know, what's the perfect password for your login? You don't want your friends to break into your computer, right? What's a good password for that? How does break-ins work to passwords? Maybe you can understand the mathematics of that. You know, am I normal? A good question for many teenagers. Can mathematics help me figure this out? Is my foot size normal, or is my height normal or not compared to the population? You know, can I spot a cheat? That's another one, maybe not on this list, that we have. You know, is it easy to spot a cheat with mathematics? These are zoomed out, and even things like, what's a beautiful shape? I mean, the Athenians worried about beautiful shapes for building the Parthenon, what the right proportions were, the golden ratio. These are mathematical issues, or they can be. but they don't appear in normal mathematics, but they could appear. Things led by problems, by interests the students might have that they might be able to then make more progress on using mathematics. Again, I ask you, why do we not have machine learning as a topic in primary schools? It's easy to understand what machine learning is doing and to use it. Very easy for most 8-year-olds to use it, but we don't have it. Calculus for 10-year-olds. Calculus as an idea is very amenable for 10-year-olds. The problem is we leave it until we can do the hand calculating, which is much harder. You need algebra, you need lots of things. So we wait till people are 16, 17, 18 years old. But the idea is very interesting and useful. Big data for big schools, right? We don't do big data. We have people with 5 data points drawing a thing by hand, not taking 1 million data points and working out what to do with them. 2 websites. Which one is performing better? That's the questions they have. And we need computationally confident adults. So what we really need is computational literacy for all. That's the way I think about this. A literacy of the computational ideas for everyone. And I compare this to literacy in the 19th century. So early in the 19th century, people thought the idea that everyone should learn to read and write was kind of crazy. They didn't need it. Most of the population was too stupid, whatever. And that was very damaging to the population because most people couldn't understand that, a few people said what you had to believe and everybody else was left to believe it. Same problem now. We have a computationally literate top level, but very few people. What we need is a large fraction of our population to have computational literacy. We need a new movement for mass computational literacy starting now. How to achieve this? Well, firstly, why us? Wolfram is as I said, 35 years, and we have been right bang in the center of mathematics through the world in every respect. We supply tens of millions of people who use mathematics with our technology, Mathematica and Wolfram Alpha and things, starting with Steve Jobs on the next machine 35 years ago on June the 23rd. And we've also employed people. We use mathematics ourselves very extensively. We do consulting to bring those ideas to many companies and organizations around the world and build better decisions for them, whether it's health or education or engineering, any of those things. So we are right in the center of seeing how mathematics gets used in the world. And if we can't see what's wrong with us and map out the educational problem, I'm not sure who can. And people aren't. So that's why I set about pushing to try to work this problem out and produce a solution that people could deploy. Why you? Look, I think there are few more impactful changes you could make in education than to introduce computational literacy to everyone. Something as impactful, perhaps, as I say, as literacy in the 19th century. In the future, if you want to get a job, and particularly a management job or a senior job, you will need to be computationally literate at some level. You need to understand how data modeling, other things work. And if you can't, you will be left behind. So this is a very important change. It will, at the moment, we have many disenfranchised people, and we see these effects in our democracies, particularly in the US, for example, where people don't believe any expert because they're disenfranchised by data, by computation. So this is a major change. And so, for example, if you connect with philanthropic organizations or you're in charge of that, this is a major change that could be made. I don't think governments are going to push this first because there are too many stakeholders at once to figure out what to do. I think it needs external to government to push these things first in most countries. So I ask you to think hard about whether you have people who would be excited about this change and want to make the sort of impact that I think we can make with this by moving it forward. So thanks very much. I actually wrote a book called The Maths Fix. I physically got it somewhere here. But this was to map out what this change should be. It's basically trying to explain not only the problem, but in a sense, the solution and some of the politics around how I think we make this change. And it's a change not only for mathematics, but I believe it's a sort of blueprint for the AI age. And so in a sense, I'm relaunching the book actually right now to explain that many of the questions I'm getting asked about ChatGPT in education actually relate to answers in this book. And it's, you know, so this is the move to computational literacy for all. Thanks very much.
Thank you.